so. My name is Jim Dam. I'm the finance chair for the Roselle Park School District this year. This is our first meeting of the public budget workshop. On our agenda tonight, we're going to give you, just want to make sure I'm thinking here, okay. Our budget meeting timeline, expenditures, revenues, Roselle Park state aid history, the tax impact, budget impact, pros and cons, future planning, and at the end, question and answers. So I would ask you to please hold questions to the end. That way we're not interrupted during Mrs. Gershio's report. All right, just bringing back budget meeting timeline. This first started December 2nd, our first Finance Committee meeting. February 23rd, our second Finance Committee meeting. February 24th, Governor Christie's budget address. Our state figures did not be released until February 26th. Our third Finance Committee was March 3rd. Our fourth Finance Committee meeting was March 10th. And our Roselle Park Board of Ed meeting to adopt the tentative budget was on March 17th. Budget documents were due to the county office for review on March 20th. On April 1st, which is today, April Fool's Day, is our first budget workshop. And April 22nd will be our second. April 24th is our last day for the county to approve the budget. April 24th, earliest date for public hearing. April 28th, public hearing, Roselle Park Board of Ed meeting, which is going to be on the 28th. And our last date for public hearing will be May 7th. Okay, and on May 12th, adopt the budget at the Roselle Park Board of Ed meeting, and last day to adopt budget would be May 14th. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Mrs. Gershio, who will give her report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming this evening, and we hope to supply you with important information with regard to our proposed budget for the 2015-2016 school year. And please, again, if you have questions, reserve them to the end. Sorry. There we go. Okay, first slide that I'd like to talk about gives you somewhat a quick glance at a school district budget. In this pie graph, you will see the different portions of the budget divided up, and you can see the very large portions of the budget consist of salaries and health and dental benefits. In fact, it's approximately 80% of the budget is committed to those two areas, salaries of our staff and health and dental benefits. The next largest portion drops down quite a bit to 5% of our budget is committed to tuition that we pay to other schools for our students, some of which are special education students, students with special needs that are sent out of district. And also, we also pay tuition for numerous Roselle Park students who attend the county school district, either the vocational school, the magnet school, the allied health school, the information technology school, and the performing arts school. So all of those students that go out of district, we are required to pay tuition for them. That constitutes about 5% of our budget. Other larger areas to our budget are the IDEA and NCLB grants, the bond payment for the referendum that was passed many years ago, contracted services that is to do numerous repairs throughout our very aging buildings, utilities such as water, electric, and gas. All of those items each represent about 2% of our budget. And miscellaneous supplies, equipment, etc. are about another 2%. The other pieces of our budget are so small that you can barely see those slices of the pie. So for more exact detail, the next slide actually gives you figures of the expenditures in the district and shows how they have changed over the last 4 years, going back to the 2012-2013 school year up through the proposed tentative budget for next year, 2015-2016. You will see in this list that most of these items have remained fairly stagnant, have not changed. There are a few that have dropped off slightly for various reasons, a few that have increased. But of course, the ones that have increased the most are the top two items, salaries paid to our staff and health and dental benefits. Concentrating on that particular list, a little further explanation. Salaries are going up because we do have a collective bargaining agreement, one that we're in the process of negotiating at the moment. No details can be given, but of course a wise budget has to cover all possibilities. So you will see there an estimated contractual increase. Also, health and dental insurance, we're in the process of going out for bids for next year. Current estimate given to us was a 12% increase. Last year at this time, we estimated a 15% increase, and after all the bids came in, it actually ended up being slightly lower, and the exact amount was 12.8%. So once again, we have some hope that something similar would happen again this year, and when those bids come in, possibly it would come in a little bit lower. The other item that has gone up since last year is the out-of-district tuition. And again, that's due to the fact that we have several new students to the district with special needs that we are sending out of district to other schools and have some costly tuition tabs aligned to that. Contracted services was another item in the list that went up slightly. And part of that reason is due to the educational efficiency study that we are planning. Those of you that attended our recent board meetings saw a presentation at one of our meetings recently about having a group come in to do a study of our enrollment, a study of our curriculum, a study of our facilities, to give us some ideas how we can possibly save money in the future. But unfortunately, to get that group to come in and do that type of study does have a cost aligned with that. And finally, the other item that went up slightly was the educational supplies. I'm sure you're all aware of the park technology needs and other new technology needs such as smart boards, computers, etc. We're somewhat committed to doing some additional purchases in that area. Next slide gives you an idea of the other end. When there's expenditures, you have to have matching revenues. For school districts, revenue primarily consists of the local tax levy and state aid, and then there are a few other items, small in comparison. Unfortunately, state aid once again remained flat, not $1 more than we received last year. So to cover the revenue needs for this particular budget, that would call for an increase in the local tax levy. With the change in the process, the state of New Jersey allows us a certain amount to increase our budget every year. They give us those figures. If we ever should decide to go beyond that limit, that is the point in time when we need to go to the community to get permission through a vote to do so. However, we are not going to exceed the allotted amount, and the allotted amount you see listed on this slide is explained to you at the right. The allotted amount is determined by the previous tax levy from 14-15 with a weighted increase for enrollment adjustments. That dollar amount is given to us by the state. That particular figure is allowed to be increased by 2%, so if you do a mathematical computation, you'll see that 2% of that top figure comes to $392,807. Roselle Park is also being allowed by the state to have an adjustment due to the increased healthcare costs. And the state is also allowing us to adjust our budget due to banked cap. In a future slide, if you wait a couple minutes, you will see the history of our tax levy. And in the last 10 years, there were 3 previous years where we did not increase the tax levy $1. And when you do something like that, school districts were given what was called the bank cap, an extra opportunity to use that increase in the future when needed. And we did use some of it last year in the budget, and there's a certain amount remaining, and that's the $219,962 that we're looking to use this year. If we don't use it this year, it will disappear. We will no longer be able to use that kind of adjustment. Next slide is a quick look at the history of state aid for Roselle Park over the past 13 years. You'll notice the bar in the center, that's a different color, was the 1 year that Roselle Park received the highest amount of state aid. That was back in 2009, 2010, when the governor was Governor Corzine. The state aid amount dropped off drastically the following year when Governor Christie was elected, and has remained somewhat level since then, and has not come back to the level that we received back in 2009-10. Next slide shows that information in more detail. Again, this illustrates the past 13 years in Roselle Park School District. You see how our budget changed in 13 years from a budget of $21.7 million to 33.4 million. So the change in 13 years was an increase of 11.7 million. Unfortunately for us, state aid nowhere increased at the same rate. In fact, it decreased and stayed somewhat level. In 13 years, state aid only increased a total of $2.7 million. Therefore, to accommodate the increase in the budget, the only way that would be possible is through increasing the tax levy. So unfortunately, with a lack of increase in state aid, that does increase the local tax levy. Next slide gives you an illustration of what the possible impact would be due to the general fund school tax levy. Mr. Ken Bloom was nice enough to supply me with the updated net valuation taxable amount for Roselle Park. Unfortunately, that amount has once again decreased. In fact, it has decreased every year for the last 9 years. That is one factor that increases your taxes. When the total pot gets smaller and smaller, that helps to increase the rate. Then, of course, the other big variable in there is the increase in the tax levy. So depending upon the current assessed value of your home, this particular general fund tax levy would increase your taxes anywhere from $300 to $400, again, depending upon your personal assessed value, and hopefully you're aware of that. And now I would like to turn over the presentation to Mr. Garrido.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to stand. I see someone sitting here, and I do not want to be covered by the projector. Thank you for coming and being informed about the budget that we are presenting to you. Thank you, Mrs. Gershow. Once again, a wonderful job in preparing a presentation that is insightful and is very informative. Before we look at the impact of either approval or disapproval of the budget, I want you to think back on page 5, the slides that Ms. Gershow put together on the state aid. Please remember that the past 4 years, the state aid has remained flat, exactly the same. The past 4 years, due to contractual obligations and rising costs, we have higher expenditures. So please keep that in mind. The state aid, which we rely very heavily on, has stayed the same. So what happens then? We depend on the tax levy to make sure that we have the programs and we have the supplies and the materials that we need to make sure our students get a quality education. So what's the impact? What's the results of the budget approval? If it's approved, we can maintain the current programs. And when I talk about programs, there are several programs. And most of the programs, are dedicated to make sure that we support those students that need it the most. They are remedial programs. They could be technology or computer-based programs. They could be after-school programs, possibly. They can also be programs during the school day that students need. So these programs we would not be able to maintain. So maintaining the programs is critical to making sure that our students get the education, and especially those that are at most need for that. Maintain the current class sizes. If we look at the research, or actually, experts always tell us that one of the most important factors for student learning is the class size. Number one is effective teacher. But one of the top three is class size. When the class size is smaller, students gain more from that. So that is important. Continue the full day kindergarten. I was just in one of the elementary schools and speaking to one of the kindergarten teachers, and she reported to me that her students are 3 months ahead of last year's students because of full day. That has been the impact from a half-day kindergarten, which was 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, to a full day, which is 5 hours. We don't want to lose that for our kids. That was a gift. We don't want to lose it. Personalized learning opportunities. We want to increase the technology that we have in the district. We want to bring the students up to the 21st century so they can compete in this global technology world that we are facing. If we do not increase the technology, we cannot prepare students for college and career workplace. We cannot. Personalized learning opportunities could be possibly a one-to-one initiative where each student, possibly we can target 2 grade levels. They can have a device that it could be their own device, and they can work in the schools, take it home, and also work at home with that same device. Many school districts are beginning those initiatives. We don't want to fall behind. Interactive technology devices, same thing. There's so many interactive devices out there. 3D printers, smart boards, Mrs. Gershel mentioned it before, where students are totally engaged in the learning. They bring, they drag, they can interact with the board. We want to make sure that we give those opportunities to our students. Once again, we want to bring them to the 21st century learning. K-8 literacy textbooks. We have a brand new program, second year. It was last year's initiative. It is called Balanced Literacy. We need to continue to purchase current literature to make sure students get the best out of that program. And of course, if we look at some of our aging buildings, they have aging furniture as well. We want to make sure that students go to the buildings and to the schools and they have furniture that they can feel comfortable with. Make sure the science labs are equipped with furniture that they can do many different experiments in. STEM or architectural furniture. We want to make sure that we give them that advantage that they deserve. This is a result of the approval of the budget. Okay, yes, the tax levy will raise the taxes, but the impact to our students' learning would really cannot be replaced. And now, if I go to the next slide, okay, what is the result of the disapproval? Well, again, no new technology opportunities. So here we go with the technology devices, no personalized learning, no interactive boards, reduction of staff, possibly 1 per grade level. And this, if the budget or the tax levy is not approved, this is what would need to be done. Because by cutting certain programs or supplies, it would not make up the amount that we need. So we need to cut staff. That means that, again, we need to increase class size. And when we increase class size, the education level goes down. And we cannot afford that. Support staff will be cut. Unfortunately, that would need to also be one of our cuts. And our students do rely on support staff. No full-day kindergarten. I think I just gave you a very good example of what full-day kindergarten has done. Our students are 3 months ahead from last year, so they are better prepared for the first grade, they are better prepared for the Common Core standards, and eventually they'll be better prepared for assessments. Programs will be cut, obviously. No new literacy textbooks, so we will have to provide students with older version of literacy texts. No new bus. And that is an area there that Mrs. Gershow is working on. And eventually, if we are able to purchase a bus, it will be a savings to the district in the near future. Because instead of contracting out for transportation, we will have our own bus. It is very expensive right now. Very expensive to contract out a bus. But if we do not pass this or approve this budget, we cannot purchase that bus. No new furniture. And our furniture does need replacement. Some of our furniture. So this is the impact, pros and cons. And it's very clear, as you can see. The pros is we continue to provide our students with quality education. We will enhance what we already have, and we will improve technology for our students, which we are in very much need of. What are the future plans for savings? We understand that the state aid is going to continue to remain flat. We also understand that we don't have a band cap coming up. We understand that we can't rely on the tax levy every year. So the board has asked to see what we can come up with alternative funding so we can do more and we can bring in more funding for the programs, for technology and things such as that. We already have contracted and are currently working with a grant writer. We are investigating other facilities for expansion. When we expand the facilities, we can bring back students that are costing a lot of money, okay? We're talking about $100,000 for some students to send out for other programs. So we're looking at that. Bring back out-of-district students. Reducing the transportation costs by purchasing the bus. Exploring more efficient use of facilities. Mrs. Gershow, I mentioned before that we are working with the possibility of what we call an efficiency district or school planner. And what they're going to do, they're going to come in, they're going to do an efficiency study, or feasibility study it's called, to see where we can be more efficient. There may be areas that we can make some changes. They do this for districts, they have a very good reputation. We might gain quite a bit. So we are being proactive to making sure that we can bring in alternative funding. We want to make sure that you know and you understand that the board, okay, is acting very responsible in making sure that we bring other ways of funding our programs. Okay? So you can see very clear, we saw where the money, the expenditures are going, where the money's coming in. We understand the tax levy. We understand that it gets passed to the taxpayers. But again, like I always say, you cannot, there is no replacement for a quality education. There is nothing that can replace the education of the children of this town. Nothing. Nothing. And just remember, investing in the schools, it is an investment in your homes also. Because a good education, or a district with a good education, okay, can mean that your property values will increase. So if we continue to provide a quality education and bring the programs, and we can continue to do these things that we are doing, I can guarantee you that this is going to help the town as well. So thank you for listening. I hope that we were able to give you the information that you needed. We will welcome any questions, comments, suggestions, right? Whatever you want to come up and give us, and we'll be here for your questions. Thank you once again. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, any comments, please, this is time to come up.
Jacob McGill, 612 Sheridan Avenue, Roselle Park. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, viewing audience, members of the board, good evening. Do you folks have a master plan of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years? Look at that.
Jake, I'm not sure if you mean a strategic plan, which, yes, we do have one. It was worked on last year and adopted. As we mentioned this evening, we're also looking to do a efficiency feasibility study to help us plan for those 10 years in the future. So yes, we do have plans, and we're working on looking into developing some other information.
Grant writer. Last night at the municipal budget meeting, the fire chief had mentioned a grant writer, and that the person was good, reasonable in cost. I don't know how much we're paying, the Board of Education is paying for the grant writer, and how much has been received, how much money actually in the bank you have. If you're paying $50,000 and you're only getting $25,000, you gotta look into it. It's not $600-some-odd thousand, but it's 40 here, 20 here, 50 there, pennies, nickels, and dimes. And the senior citizens have to swallow a $330 increase. $300. A lot of money.
Excellent point, Jake. We definitely will be reviewing the grant writer that we just recently hired. They only started working for us a few months ago, and by the end of the school year, we do plan on reviewing exactly what you said, what it cost us to bring these people in, and exactly how much money the school district has received as a result. And of course, we will weigh that very carefully going forward and use that to decide whether or not we will employ them again in the future, or look for someone else who could produce better results.
The fire chief said he was going to contact.
Great, I appreciate that.
Furniture, can you purchase it on a lease to buy?
Yes. Lease purchase is somewhat similar to a loan, where we get X amount of dollars, and with that we are allowed to purchase equipment, furniture, a bus. So it has to be specific equipment type items. So yes, we have done that in the past, and we plan on doing so again this year.
How many buses are you looking to purchase?
We're looking to purchase one additional bus. As you know, we currently have 2 buses. We are spending a tremendous amount of money hiring outside bus companies to transport our students to the Scotch Plains campus every day. We currently have 2 to 3 buses that we pay for to transport over 100 students to that campus, and we hope by purchasing this additional bus that we will be able to do that transportation ourselves using our own buses, our own staff members, and not having to pay. We're spending approximately $150,000 a year on that outside transportation.
And you're going to save $150,000 by buying another bus?
Well, over the course of time, we'll be saving $150,000 every year, spending a much smaller amount to, it would just be to the cost of the bus paid out over so many years, the cost of the bus driver, cost of gasoline, etc.
Cost of the health benefits?
Most of those bus drivers are either current staff who already receive health benefits, and if they're not current staff, we have some of our own custodial maintenance people who receive health benefits because they are full-time staff doing some additional time driving the bus, so there would be no additional health benefit costs.
I speak for myself and for senior citizens in Roselle Park. Not happy with this tax increase on the Board of Education. But I support education. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. We appreciate your input always.
Eugene Miola, excuse me, Eugene Miola, 226 Sheridan Avenue. Presently, how many students are in a given classroom as far as size? Between kindergarten and high school?
Do you mean the total enrollment per grade or the average class size per room?
Per room, like there are a dozen in the classroom?
It depends.
It depends. There are some classes that are up to 24, 25
Presently?
presently, and there are some that are 18, 17. We don't have any that are that small unless it's a small group instruction classroom that is for students with special needs. Then they have to, by law, they have to be small, less than 10 or so. But the general education classes can range anywhere from 17, 18 to 25 presently.
I see. I'm having a hard time understanding higher staff, highly educated college teachers not being able to find or write grants where they're teaching students to do this. It just doesn't add up to me. Like, you should be able to find someone here to be able to do this, or should have been doing this without having to go outside for anything. You could even make it a project where the smarter students would assist in doing this. And you wouldn't have to hire anybody and give a grade for it. And maybe everyone wins. Because I've heard a lot about this increase I'm for education, but when the taxes exceed the mortgage, it's time to move. It's when you students graduate, they can't buy a home in the very town that they went to school in because they can't afford it. Not for a mortgage payment, but for a tax that now they don't receive but have to pay. I'm on the paying end of it. I've been. You all probably too. But we have to start cutting expenses. Although we don't want to, I want a new car. But I know I can't afford one, so I don't buy one. You want a new bus? I want a new bus if I could get one. But if I can't afford it, I'm not putting any more weight on the people. And I don't think the people in the school should do it. Look for cuts. If you have to cut staff, then cut it. People understand that they can't afford any more weight on their back. And this is all I'm saying. I'm not picking on any particular class or group of people. It's just it's all we can do to stay afloat. And it's just so easy to say it's contractual, it's law. Who did this? The lawyers did this, so that you have no choice. Now you sit up there, you do your best, you be quiet, you hear everybody out, but it's not enough when you have to go home and try and figure out how we're going to do it. With the current increases, we're looking at $500. And when you're spending $12,000 already, what's the next move? So I just want everyone up there to say, okay, the people are going to have to pay more. Don't do it to us. I know it's easy to say don't do it, but try and find a way. If you have to cut things, cut them. And you bring them back when the economy gets better and people are making more money. Because houses values are not going up. When the kids graduate, the parents leave this town because they can't afford to stay. I'm sorry I have to be like this. I have to tell you how I feel. That's why I came tonight. I could have stayed home, but the majority of people work so hard when they come home, they just can't go out anymore and do this. So they just have dinners, spend some time with their family, and go to bed. But here I can't accept just sitting back and saying, well, it's another increase. I won't say nothing. I want to say something. That's why I'm saying. I know furniture and all that other stuff, you need it, but I can't believe that there's nothing else that we can do. But besides bringing more people on, a new staff, additional this and that. And that's all I want to say. Maybe I'm not making sense at all. I just want
Thank you.
to
We appreciate taking suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saul Kiersman, 150 Berwyn Street. Having been at these meetings, I'm not defending, not accusing. But teachers have been writing grants for years. That is his name. Mr. Bangs is very famous for doing that. Teachers actually do that. My personal opinion is, but it's the way of the world. A teacher's supposed to teach. But they do that. Mr. Bangs has had probably enormous success with a lot of his recycling grants. He's actually made them projects. So I've been to meetings, so I know that actually happens. Could it be more? Yes. We can't actually do it to students because, I don't know what most people know, but grant writers receive a portion, for the most part, of a grant. It's a commission. It's the incentive, which is fine. So that's one thing. And I guess I just have other questions. With the bus, I thought it was on last year's budget. I almost recall seeing it, but I might have been wrong. So, what is the... So is this saying that by next year there will be a bus?
Through the lease purchase, one of the items we are looking to buy is a large, like 54-passenger bus. Been looking into the prices, and they appear to range in cost from about $75,000 to $85,000. But keep in mind that I just mentioned a little while ago that we are spending as a district approximately $150,000 each year to pay Union County Ed Services Commission to send 2 to 3 buses here every day to pick up the students in front of the high school and bring them to the Scotch Plains campus, and then at the end of the day, do that trip and return. So actually, by purchasing a bus for $75,000, we're actually reducing costs. And we'll reduce the cost the first year alone, never mind all the years after that.
Right. So then I guess my other question, there are certain insurance restrictions that would disallow renting from some other transportation company that might come in lower? Like, is there something that states because it's children or something?
Believe me, if there were cheaper places
Okay.
to get buses from, we would be using them.
Maybe you could rent them
Keep in mind that the purpose of Union County Ed Services Commission and the purpose of Morris Union Jointure Commission is to provide services to school districts that are too costly for them to provide individually.
It's like a co-op.
So it's a co-op, and they offer those services to school districts in the area then at a discounted rate. So if I had to contract out with a private bus company, that cost would probably double,
Well,
if not more.
I'm half joking, but we do have a bus rental company in town. I don't know if anyone's ever even approached that company. It's DJ Limo, but they actually do have buses. I don't know if anyone's approached them. That he's a member of the community. His family's been here. He has businesses. I don't know, but that's perhaps.
It's worth checking into.
Right.
You're absolutely right. So all the ideas are worth checking out. You never know.
So when's the last time a bus was purchased?
We purchased the small bus. I'm not a few years ago. I'm not exactly sure the exact number, but just a couple of years ago, we purchased the small bus, and probably closer to 9 years ago, we purchased the large bus.
Okay.
So we have a large bus, a small bus, and hopefully, as of September 1, we'll have a second large bus.
Okay.
And this will be used for transporting, as I said, the students to the Scotch Plains campus. They're also used for our special ed transportation that we're required to do by law according to students' IEP. We also use them for athletic transportation and also field trips as well. So it definitely saves the district a lot of money to have our own buses to do those services.
Okay. My other question is, and I don't know the answer. I would like either someone to confirm or clarify. You were talking about excuse the term, the depreciation of our valuation from year to year that goes down. Does the school district or does the municipality or anybody know if the reval that's happening now, will that affect that depreciation that goes down, the valuation that goes down? Will that affect?
I guess I don't have an answer to that question. Perhaps Ken Bloom could answer that better, and I'm sure time will tell all of us Roselle Park residents what will happen.
The budget vote, does it need to be a simple majority or does it need to be a 2/3 majority?
It needs to be a simple majority.
So suppose it's voted down. Suppose the majority of the board says no. What happens?
Well, the budget would...
I'm sorry, I meant the process. I understand what Mr. Garrido explained as to, but I meant the process. So what it gets voted down, what is the process?
Then we would have to inform the county office of that and tell them that we will be revising the budget. They would allow us to reopen the budget software and make those revisions. Hopefully, they would allow us to do that.
Okay, so then it's done again. Are discussions made with the board members, either in private, as to what they're looking for? Because my question is, so suppose it comes back again and it gets voted down again, or are there steps to kind of prevent that by having discussions to say, well, tell me why you voted down?
As you know from tonight's presentation and the timeline, that there's been a number of meetings held already, committee meetings discussing various aspects of the budget. So the total board has been informed through committees with the process. We've been getting their input all along, We will continue to do so in the next month, according to the calendar, when we must have our public hearing and when we must have a final adoption of our budget. We're very aware of that timeline that is given to us by law.
Okay. So it gets voted down. And there's a time frame again where there's discussions and it's brought back up again. And then I guess the review or renewed figures are now presented. At that point, since it's going to fall below what was presented now, I guess there'll be other discussions as to what gets cut, right?
Correct. Finance committee would have those discussions and make those decisions.
But those are never presented to the public because it's under the 2%.
Right.
So looking towards the future, where at some point, I believe, we will have to begin presenting, the district will have to begin presenting budgets to the voter for the over 2%. That process, is it still the same where it goes before the municipality? So that 2% gets voted, the voters say, no, we do not want this 2%. What happens in that instance?
When the excess beyond the 2% goes to the voters,
Correct. And that gets voted down. So suppose
then
it's 3%.
that is it. That it's voted down, and that unfortunately that process does not occur until the November election. So any wise board would know that you could not put items up for a vote when the budget has to go into effect. So more or less what I'm saying, a portion of the budget, if that got pulled, would have to be equipment, supplies that you do not purchase until the public gives you the approval vote
Right.
to do so.
I understand that part. What I'm
I
asking
mean, you
is,
can't put a staff member's salary up to vote and then fire them,
well,
you know,
what
in
I'm-
November when school has started.
right, what I'm kind of asking is, before, because this happened before, the entire budget was voted down.
That was in the old process.
So in the old process, it would go before the municipality. That no longer happens.
No.
So that's just, it's a one-time thing. And then the cuts, and I guess it'd be internal dialogue within closed sessions and
Right.
stuff. Okay. And then my other question is the strategic plan, which I was a part of. Has there been an accompanying budget analysis to that strategic plan? So to say, within year 2, if we plan to do this, this is about what it's going to cost. And is that worked into year 3, year 4, year 5? Are those fit? Is there an estimate? B, is that estimate put into a budget?
What we will do at the end of this year, hopefully in May, we will evaluate the first year of the strategic plan and see what's been accomplished, what needs to be moved to the following year. There's not one budget for the strategic plan.
Okay.
When we put it together and when the administration meets and when Ms. Gershel puts the budget together, we are mindful of what's in the strategic plan. And we plan for that. If we can, obviously now when we evaluate the plan, it has to be moved to the following year because there was no funds
Right.
to have for that particular area.
And I guess maybe that should be in people's minds.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's a wish list and it's a great list.
It could be,
But when
yes.
you go, especially when figures are becoming more and more tight,
Yes,
to say, well, this is, if,
right.
committee, if this is what you want, this is the estimate of what it's going to cost.
Yeah,
And this is how it's going to impact.
That's right.
Okay.
And sometimes you really have no control over it because you don't know what
You don't know.
it's going to look like. Right.
You don't know.
Right.
Now, there was some discussion about park testing and how that impacted the budget, or did I hear that wrong?
There was a question about it.
Because I thought park was going to be paid for by the state.
Well, the ticket.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Park was not paid for by the state as far as the technology involved. Sure you're well aware of the park test takes place on computers.
Correct.
And therefore a district has to ensure that they have sufficient computers for the entire student body to take the test. And along with that, you also have to guarantee that your technological infrastructure is in place, that you have the appropriate bandwidth, etc., to facilitate several hundred students being online all at one time. So there were those costs involved, bringing our technology up to par for the test. The only additional state funding that Roselle Park received for the park test was the figure that you'll see in one of the slides previously. It was approximately $18,000, and believe me, the cost of the technology needed for the district for park testing was way more than $18,000.
Because I recall Mr. Balaban asking that question at a meeting. And he said, is it fully funded? And the answer came back yes. So, was the testing?
It's not fully funded, but
The creation of the test,
the test itself is not costing anything, and I think that's what he meant. And actually, the results, to have the test,
To have the test scored and
Right.
things such as that there's no cost. The cost is, as Ms. Gershon was just saying, is the technology part of it, which you hope that you will have the technology because that's something that we
Right.
want to increase also. So, yes, there is a cost, it's the technology and the infrastructure to support that technology.
Okay, so in line with that, that now becomes a mandatory cost. Because to take the test, you have to have the technology.
Right, correct.
Is there something within the law that requires a minimum number of workstations, a minimum number of bandwidth? Because now that becomes a state requirement, basically, right? If you say you must have a workstation for every student, you must have 30 workstations or whatever the number is, and you must have this amount of bandwidth, that now becomes a state mandated cost, lack of a better word. And has that been reviewed either by this district or any district to see if there are ways to cut those costs and remain within the regulations? And that ties me into another question of, has there ever been a shared services feasibility study with either municipality or another school district like Kenilworth? And maybe now's the time to give that feasibility study serious thought.
I'm sure that will be a component of the feasibility study. They're going to be looking into our district and giving us numerous options. It'll be interesting to see if that is one of the options that they
That's what this company
propose.
is. Is that what this company is going to do? The firm that was here.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, they're actually going to be doing a
Yes.
shared services study.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
That's part of the study, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to add state mandate, state pay, federal mandate, federal pay. We forgot that. Years ago we said that. And all of a sudden it went by. We can't expect to be the workforce paying and paying and paying. Matter of fact, with the pension, Christy Whitman had counted that she had pension plan all funded when she left office. And then the other governors raided the pension plan. That's going to stop. State mandated, state pay. Federal mandated, federal pay. Hope it's not going to fall on deaf ears. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much for coming this evening. We do have planned a second budget workshop on April 22nd. It will once again be located here in the high school auditorium at 7 p.m. If you're interested in attending, or if you know of anyone else who is interested in attending. That will be April 22nd, 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium.
Thank you.